Welcome. We are the Ministry of the Real Truth, and today we are presenting you this video about a collection of Jehovah Witness or JW books that we pulled up off the side of the road many years ago in a giant suitcase, so you can imagine how many there were, all different colours. On Organic Day we thought, what a waste, we could add those to our collection, so we scooped them all up and carried them off and put them on our bookshelf in our garage at our residence. One of these happens to be titled "Did Man Get Here by Evolution or by Creation?" Not too sure what date it was written and published, but the copyright says 1967. So inside it has the name of someone we thought we may have known from previous years, from the Church of the Nazarene when the Burtons owned it, were running it, Pastor Burton or Reverend Burton. Shirley Rowe, who stayed in Mount Roscoe, Auckland, and they had a child called Chrissy, and the husband's name was Jim Rowe, an American. So not too sure if it was them, but if it was you, hello there. Probably don't remember me, I was a little kid way back then, into that church, maybe a bit older. But yeah, I found a whole lot of your books in a suitcase on the side of the road on Organic Day here, right? So I picked them all up, scooped them all up, and it's called "Did Man Get Here by Evolution or by Creation?" Try to keep it brief. In almost all countries throughout the world, the doctrine of evolution is taught. School textbooks on biology and history present evolution as established fact. Evolutionary teaching saturates science, philosophy, history, and even religion today. Whenever the subject of the origin of life and man is discussed, it is almost always presented in evolutionary terms. But what do you personally know of the evidence for or against the belief in evolution? Does it really harmonise with the fact of science? We invite your careful examination of this matter, as it has a direct bearing on your life and your future. The publishers. Copyright 1967 by Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania, USA. The publishers Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York, Inc., which means incorporated, which means that they were a business. They weren't always an org or organisation. Okay. Here's the contents here. Contents page, which says is evolution, or is evolution an established fact? Development of evolutionary theory. Does life come from non-living matter? What does the fossil record show? Fundamental law of all living things. Do mutations result in new life forms? Heredity keeps family kind separate. Are ape-like men our ancestors? How old is man? Living testimony to a creator. Why do so many believe evolution? Who or what was responsible for man's wickedness? Why has wickedness been permitted for so long? How much longer will it be? A marvellous future, and references. And there happens to be a picture, a drawing of Adam and Eve, supposed ape men, or men that came from apes, primates, and people pondering about it. Which one? And they're pondering. Which one is the truth? Chapter 1, in brief, states, is evolution an established fact? Are you a descendant of an ape-like beast that lived millions of years ago? Or, as we have come across in the ancient, very old, original Aramaic, Tab Ashrit of the Neanderthal man? Okay. Again, are you a descendant of an ape-like beast that lives millions of years ago? Sooner or later, this question confronts almost everyone, especially students in the school systems of this world. The instructors and textbooks of these students teach that man did descend from the beast by the process of evolution. On the other hand, the Bible teaches that God created man and all kinds of life directly and not by a process of evolution. Has there been so much evidence for evolution that this Bible teaching is obsolete? Is evolution a fact? Does it hold the key to the future of mankind? And two, does it really make any difference whether man evolved from the animals or not? Does it affect our lives? Organic evolution. Evolution in the sense that is applied to plants, animals and man is said to be the transforming of one kind of life into another kind. A writer in the Houston Post of August 23, 1964 defined it this way: evolution, in very simple terms, means that life progressed from one-celled organisms to its highest state, the human being, by means of a series of biological changes taking place over millions of years. Another source, River of Life, stated, when living things came out of the sea to live on land, fins turned into legs, gills into lungs, scales into fur. In the 1966 World Book Encyclopedia said, the theory of organic evolution involves these three main ideas. 1. Living things change from generation to generation, producing descendants with new characteristics. 2. This process has been going on so long that it has produced all the groups and kinds of things now living, as well as others that lived long ago and have died out or become extinct. 3. These different living things are related to each other. Mere change within a basic type of living thing is not to be regarded as evolution. That is simply variety, as we can observe among all plants, animals and man. For instance, there are various sizes, shapes and colours of cats, but such is only variety and in itself does not constitute organic evolution. And here's different professors and scientists etc. that are talking about it and saying it's fact, all this sort of thing. Accepted as fact. At the same conference, Huxley told 2,500 assembled delegates, we all accept the fact of evolution. The evolution of life is no longer a theory, because it went from hypothesis to start, and then a theory, and it became a scientific theory, and now it's boasted as scientific fact. The evolution of life is no longer a theory, it is a fact. It is the basis of all our thinking. The 1963 book Biology for You confirms this by saying all reputable biologists have agreed, all of them, that the evolution of life on Earth is an established fact. The majority of educators also accept evolution. One university president from the United States said, it takes an overwhelming prejudice to refuse to accept the facts, and anyone who is exposed to the evidence supporting evolution must recognise it as an historical fact. And there's heaps more information about different people with different opinions on the science world and so forth. Is it actually a fact? Or is it a fact? However, when analysing more deeply the comments of those who consider evolution an established fact, a truly amazing situation develops. It is one that the average person is probably not aware of, one that has few parallels in any other field of science. Over 100 years ago, in 1859, evolutionist Charles Darwin stated in chapter 6 of his book, The Origin of Species, long before the reader has arrived at this part of my work, a crowd of difficulties would have occurred to him. Some of them are so serious that to this day I can hardly reflect on them without being in some degree staggered. How much of a fact was evolution in Darwin's day if he was staggered by its difficulties? So forth. In the Encyclopedia Britannica stated, we are not in the least doubt as to the fact of evolution. The evidence by now is overwhelming, but a few pages later it called that evidence very imperfect and often interrupted by gaps. It added, of the vital processes which brought about these changes, we are as yet ignorant. Then it goes on about famous evolutionists, Sir Gavin de Beer. In his recent biography, or his then biography, Charles Darwin writes, Darwin, predicted that the evidence would one day be forthcoming, and that day has arrived, for the series of fossils just mentioned provides the crucial evidence that man did evolve. Yet in 1964, in the book The Fossil Evidence for Human Evolution, written by another prominent evolutionist, W. Lee Gross Clark, we read, the chances of finding the fossil remains of actual ancestors or even representatives of the local geographical group which provided the actual ancestors are so fantastically remote as not to be worth consideration. The interpretation of the ontological evidence of hominid evolution, which has been offered in the preceding chapters, is a provisional interpretation. Because of the incompleteness of the evidence, it could hardly be otherwise. When Science magazine in 1965 reviewed the book, The Basis of Human Evolution, it stated, "The reader may be dumbfounded that so much work has settled so few questions." And in the 1966 World Book Encyclopedia, we read, "No one should make the mistake of saying that evolution is fully understood." Also, Science newsletter said in 1965, "Fight is among scientists over just how man did evolve, when he did so, and what he looked like. Can any process be called a fact, an actual happening, a verified statement, when the knowledge of how, when, where, what, and why is missing?" If someone stated that it was a fact that a skyscraper evolved by itself from a brick on any empty lot, but that how, when, where, and why it did so, and what it looked like in the process, were not known, would you consider the transformation a fact or just an assertion? That the teaching of evolution cannot be called a scientific fact is shown in the statement by the evolutionist Clark. What was the ultimate origin of man? Unfortunately, any answers which can at present or at that time be given to these questions are based on indirect evidence and thus are largely conjectural. This is also acknowledged by former president of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. Writing in Science magazine in support of evolution, he said, "Come now, if you will, on a speculation excursion into prehistory. Assume the era in which the species sapiens emerged from the genus Homo. Hasten across the millenniums, for which present information depends for the most part on conjecture and interpretation, to the era of the first inscribed records, from which some facts may be gleaned," and so forth. The origin of species, British scientist William Davies once said, "It has been estimated that no fewer than 800 phrases in the subjunctive mood, such as 'let us assume' or 'we may well suppose', etc., are to be found between the covers of Darwin's Origin of Species alone." The sincere inquirer cannot help but be struck by this situation. Evolutionists dogmatically assert that evolution is a fact, yet admit that all the important conclusions are conjectural. Indeed, one scientist, Dr. T.N. Tamisian, a physiologist for the Atomic Energy Commission, said, "Scientists who go about teaching that evolution is a fact of life are great conmen, and the story they are telling that may be the greatest hoax ever. In explaining evolution, we do not have one iota of fact." He called it a tangled mishmash of guessing games and figure juggling. Another scientist, head of a college science department, J.W. Klotz, stated in 1965 that acceptance of evolution is still based on a great deal of faith. You'd have to look at the background of the evolution theory, considering the following questions: when did the modern ideas of evolution begin? How have they developed? What is the current status of the theory? Why is there so much confusion and contradiction among evolutionists themselves? And if we apply the truly scientific method of observing all the facts first and then drawing conclusions, what do they show? Then it's got development of the evolutionary theory. There's a picture here: traits acquired during lifetime, such as artificially enlarged lips, not passed on to offspring. Here's a picture here of an African lady with a dish in her lips. It was a tradition, whatever tribe that was, and it hasn't been passed on to the child. Yeah, because she got these big lips, artificial lips, because of that dish plate placed in them when she was younger. It hasn't passed on to the child that she's born. Okay. Scientists, this is from as time passed, however, objections to Darwin's position appeared. This is called to our attention in the 1964 textbook Biology for Today by Clark and Mould. Scientists have raised a number of objections against complete acceptance of Darwin's theory. 1. The theory does not account for all the known facts of heredity. For example, the theory does not clearly explain why some variations are inherited and others are not. Many variations are so trivial that they could not possibly aid in an organism in its struggle for existence. 2. The theory does not explain how the gradual accumulation of trivial variations could result in the appearance of some of the more complex structures found in higher organisms. And that's from the 1964 textbook Biology for Today by Clark and Mould. And so forth. And you've got the modern theory about the giraffe. Why the giraffe got an extra long neck, supposedly because it ran out of lower vegetation or feed at this level, so it stretched its neck, right, and reached the top of trees, that vegetation, right, to survive. It gradually got a longer and longer and longer neck, like one of those fireman's extension ladders. Yeah, they talk about that. Different kind of sheep and so forth. It asks, does life come from non-living matter? For evolution asserts that the first speck of life on Earth rose by itself from inanimate matter. All matter on Earth is composed of basic chemical elements. An element is a substance made up entirely of atoms of one single kind and cannot be simplified or decomposed by ordinary chemical means. Is there any trend toward evolution among the elements on Earth? No, for atoms are generally found to be either stable or, in the case of some, in a decaying trend until they turn into an element that is stable. And here's an example in picture format, asking the questions. Wagon will not move by itself unless acted upon by outside force. Machine left to itself decays as inanimate matter tends downward, not upward. Time produces disintegration, eroding cliffs. It is destructive, not constructive. So there's nothing growing from that if it's eroding, and it's destructive, not constructive. A ball will not pick itself up off the ground. More information here on the living cell. A computer did not evolve by itself from inanimate matter, yet a living cell is far more complicated than the most complex computer. A book does not result from a chance coordination of ink molecules or an accident in a printing factory, yet it is simple compared to a single living cell. And it's got, from where does life come from? The theory of the evolution of a living cell from non-living matter is really just a refined version of the older theory of spontaneous generation, which step by step was discredited by true scientific facts. Review text in biology tells about it. Francesco Redi, an Italian physician, was the first, about 1688, to carry out controlled experiments that disproved the belief that maggots arose from decaying fish, snakes and meat. Redi proved that maggots and flies arise from living parents and not from dead matter. Lazario Spallanzani, an Italian priest, about 1780, sealed numerous vegetable juices in glass flasks and then boiled them. After allowing these materials to cool and stand for a number of days, Spallanzani could not observe any organisms. Even microscopic examination did not reveal them. Spallanzani concluded that nothing developed in the juices because boiling killed any molecules. Maggots and meat came from eggs deposited by flies. When jar cover kept, flies out, no maggots appeared. So Spallanzani concluded that nothing developed in the juices because boiling killed any living organisms that might have been present. Consequently, there were no living organisms to give rise to new ones. Louis Pasteur, a French scientist about 1860, conclusively demonstrated that microorganisms, which are present everywhere, get into organic matter which serves as their food. After feeding and growing, the microorganisms reproduce and thereby give rise to many others like themselves. If flasks containing food are sealed and sterilized, even after many months, no microorganisms appear. The origin of any life, however simple, is really based on the scientific principle of biogenesis. Of this principle, the Encyclopedia Americana says, from the Greek words bios, life, and genesis, birth, source, creation is the biological term for the doctrine that living organisms are produced only by other living organisms. Biologists are now not only in virtually unanimous agreement that all life derives from preceding life, but that this parent organism and its offspring are of the same kind. This exactly fits the scientific facts which demonstrate that inanimate matter by itself is never seen building up life of any kind. Only when life is already present is there a possibility of a new life. As the 1963 book Biology for You by B.B. Vance and D.F. Miller states, all of the forms of plants and animals that we have studied in biology produce their young from their own bodies and in no other way. Those are the facts that science has actually proved. Yet note what evolutionist E.J. Gardner, a professor of zoology, stated in Organic Evolution and the Bible. A type of spontaneous generation may have taken place in the remote past, a billion years or more ago, from which the forms presently living on the earth may have descended. The possibility of the appropriate elements, energy and suitable environment coming together by chance seems remote indeed, but in tremendously long periods of time the impossible becomes inevitable. How can such reasoning be regarded as scientific when it is contrary to known facts? It is not scientific at all, but it is blind credulity. A rocket requires a maker, as does even a simple arrowhead. What of the most complex things of all living organisms? In a mathematics formula ever the result of a chance? Is a mathematic formula ever the result of a chance coordination of chalk molecules on a blackboard? How much of it evolved by itself? How much is the result of an intelligent maker? What does the fossil record show? If living things evolve from one-celled organisms into higher forms of animal and plant life, then we would expect to see evidence of this in the fossil record. Surely some of those earliest forms left either their fossils, their imprints, or other evidences in the earth. What does the fossil record show? Over a century ago, the record disturbed even Charles Darwin. He wrote of this in his book, The Origin of Species. There is another and allied difficulty, which is much more serious. I, Charles Darwin, allude to the manner in which species belonging to several of the main divisions of the animal kingdom suddenly appear in the lowest known fossiliferous rocks. If the evolution theory be true, it is indisputable that before the lowest Cambrian stratum was deposited, long periods elapsed, as long as, or probably far longer than, the whole interval from the Cambrian age to the present day, and that during these vast periods the world swarmed with living creatures. To the question why we do not find rich fossiliferous deposits belonging to these assumed earliest periods prior to the Cambrian system, I can give no satisfying answer. So he couldn't answer it. He could provide an answer for that. The difficulty of assigning any good reason for the absence of vast piles of strata rich in fossils beneath the Cambrian system is very great. The Cambrian layer of earth mentioned by Darwin is said by evolutionists to be about 60 billion years old. In Darwin's day, the fossil record of the pre-Cambrian layers was a blank. Now, after more than 100 years of intensive investigation, what do the facts show? The New York Times of October 25, 1964, in an article supporting evolution, admits that the period is still a blank. The chief puzzle in the record of life's history on Earth, the sudden appearance of some 600 million years ago, of most basic divisions of the plant and animal kingdoms. There is virtually no record of how these divisions came about. Thus, the entire first part of evolutionary history is missing. The same admission is made by the book The World We Live In, for at least 3/4 of the book of ages engraved in the Earth's crust. The pages are blank. And in Scientific American of August 1964, quotes, and then the same conclusions are drawn in Natural History magazine of October 1959 in an article entitled Darwin and the Fossil Record, and so forth. And there's quite a lot more information here that we could cover. So with this short video, hopefully it's short enough, not too long and overwhelming, do your own personal research on all of these books mentioned. They're quite old, but have a look online for them, see if you can find them, and then compare what we've said through this video according to this Jehovah Witness book. So we have, did man get here by evolution or by creation? All those statements made by them. Do your personal research and look at, see if you can find those books to find out if those statements are actually made, that they're actually true, that these people aren't making that up. Okay? It's all over to you. So we hope that you enjoyed part 1 of this series on the Jehovah Witness books that we found an organic day in a suitcase that we retrieved and had kept for years in our personal library at our residence. So it's still in good condition from the day about 10 years ago or more that we actually picked them up from that suitcase. Yeah, so they were in good condition then, and they're still in good condition today. Don't know how much they'd be worth if someone was looking to collect them all, buy them all, whatever. Yeah, wouldn't have a clue. But yeah, that's one of them that we brought to you. We are the Ministry of the Real Truth. We are not Jehovah Witnesses or Jehovah Witness associated or affiliated or part of that church. We just happen to have been inspired by them. We talk to them if they come and approach us with their scriptures, their little watch our books, etc. Okay? Because they may teach us something that we are not aware of. Okay, so if you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up, add your comments below in the comment section, subscribe to our channel, make sure that you've checked the notification bell so you'll not miss out on any videos that we upload to help you in your Christian walk, because we present you with the whole truth, the real truth, the whole truth, and nothing but that truth, no hype or baloney. Alright, so then go tell your friends, neighbours, family, church members, JWs, etc. Hey, go look at the Ministry of the Real Truth. They've checked out your books, okay, because they found them on the side of the road in an organic collection in their suitcase, and they've kept them all. They've got them all, or most of them. And this is what we've learned from their video. Okay, we'll see you on the next exciting video in regards to their book series.